Did you know that almost 20% of children aged 12 to 17 in 2021 received treatment for mental health conditions that included therapy and counseling or prescription medication? Data also showed that white children were the most likely racial demographic to receive mental health treatment, and that children in urban areas were more likely to receive treatment compared to those in rural areas. This has nearly doubled over the last 10 years, and we would like to discuss some things that are contributing to this issue, along with several other topics.
Welcome to the Josh Calloway Podcast.
Welcome to the Josh Calloway Podcast. This is Josh Calloway. I have my good friend, Mr. Aaron Wells, here with me tonight. How you doing, Mr. Aaron?
Oh, hanging in there.
Hanging in there. Busy week, I heard.
Yeah, a little bit. A lot of driving going on. A lot of driving, that's for sure.
A lot of driving. I know a lot of you probably don't know, but Aaron also plays the saxophone. I know he's got a wedding he's got to play out on Saturday, so I know he's been working hard at practicing at these songs. And
well, hopefully it doesn't run everybody out of the reception or whatever.
Does it ever make you wish when you're doing things like that you would have applied yourself a little bit harder when you were younger?
I wish I knew how to read notes better.
There you go.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I play the piano as well, and I wish I would have actually paid attention for the 2 weeks that I took lessons and then decided I didn't need them anymore and thought that I knew better. And I play by ear, but, man, it would be nice to be able to fluently, if I can use it that way, read music.
Yeah, if I could just throw the sheet up there and play it and not have to worry about it, that would be so awesome.
Absolutely. Well, we got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things that are going on. We're still in the middle of Pride Month, so always something.
Longest month of the year, for sure.
Always something popping up there. But as I said in the beginning, we're dealing with things unlike we have never faced in our society. And this issue of our youth, I talk about them all the time. It's my heart. It's my passion. It's something that I'm never going to back off of or to walk away from. I think it's important. It's our future. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we have seen pretty much in the last 10 years just what we know about in regard to treatment. Mm-hmm. Our young people, it has doubled in youth, 12 to 17 years old, that are being treated for mental health conditions. Right. And this includes therapy, it includes counseling, and it includes prescription medication. Yeah. So we're not just treating it in discussion, but we're treating it with medication as well, getting children, their mind being altered by some of these drugs that they're being put on. And it just, when you think about it, you think about all that is going on in our nation, and I've said many times that the mind is the gateway to the heart. Mm-hmm. And our pastor has made the statement before that the mind and the heart have to be operational for God to be able to work in their life. And so I believe that is why that the attack is so strong. Yeah. And why that we are seeing this expedited. There's several things that play into that. Some of them are the symptom. Mm-hmm. And some of the things are actually contributing to the root of the problem. Right. And so when we talk about depression, when we talk about those types of things, someone being suicidal, those are usually symptoms of root problems that they're dealing with. And how can a child being suicidal or a child being depressed, like truly depressed, how can that not get to your heart? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. There's also, it's so ambiguous sometimes how people define things. So now we have the term suicidality, which basically means that it's not that someone has to have actually thought about committing suicide. It's that they have to tell somebody that they've thought about committing suicide. Does it make sense? So you don't really know what they've thought. It's impossible to see what somebody thinks.
Right.
Right. So we've seen a massive rise, first of all, in self-reporting or self-diagnosing or whatever. And we've seen kind of the medical community start to, for instance, whenever somebody would go to the doctor, several years ago, and they would think that they have all kinds of problems all the time, then the doctors a lot of times were supposed to be kind of a balancing force there to say, no, you don't have this problem, you don't have that problem, and to guide them in the right direction. No, there's nothing wrong with you, you're just worried about whatever it is. Now it seems like, especially with the transgender issue, then it's whatever you feel, then the doctor says, yeah, that's what you have, and you see a lot of these things. First of all, the second thing is whenever you're talking about depression and suicidality, then there's like this, there are like communities that say, well, we're here to support you, is what they say that they're there to do. But these communities keep growing larger and larger instead of smaller and smaller. So instead of the communities of depression or the communities of suicidality and young people actually helping those young people regress from that and return more to a healthy state of mind, then instead it seems like they're attracting more people into their group, and
right.
And it's a lot of it has a medical diagnosis, but it has social fuel.
Yeah.
So it's the society and the social media that fuels all of these thoughts. Like, I don't think there's any 6 or 7 year old kid that would on their own even understand what suicide is. Mm-hmm. It literally takes someone to sit them down and tell them what it is. Yeah. Things like that. There's a lot of issues that arise, and no doubt children are dealing with more than they've ever dealt with, more pressure and more oppression than they've ever dealt with. You can even look at just a simple diagnosis of like ADHD in Kentucky. It was roughly 8.9% in 2003, and it's very close to 17% of children in Kentucky are diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
It's showing that their ability, what ADHD, I guess, basically means is like attention deficit disorder, attention hyper deficit, something I'm not a medical professional, unfortunately. It just shows that there's
Probably,
a lot going. Yeah,
but go ahead.
a lot going on with people's minds. Their ability to focus on things is decreasing without medication, right? Their ability to feel positive about the world that they're living in is decreasing without medication.
Yeah.
Their ability to think about even continuing on with their life is decreasing without medication and massive amounts of intervention. And I think you have some things maybe that have kind of started this whole track that we're on.
Yeah.
But it shows, I think, a large section of the society that are influencing the direction that our children are taking.
So many things have happened definitely in the last 4 to 5 years that have brought us, have expedited to bring us to where we are right now.
Right.
But, there's a lot of things that we could talk about, and there's been a lot of studies done. I didn't dive into some of these things, but if you go back and you look at when we were introduced to video games and those types of things where kids, and then where kids were actually, that was all that they did. And then the cell phone and the iPad and all of those things come on the scene where the young people spend all of their time at a screen. They spend all of their time letting something else think for them.
Right.
And suicide, and if you look at the different age groups, as far as younger people, and I'm saying 25 and under, second and third leading cause of death based on which age group that you look at. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about in a place where we have car accidents, where we have cancer, where we have all of these things that take the lives of people.
Right.
And the second leading cause of death for an age group of young people is them taking their own life.
Right.
And I understand that the thief cometh not before to steal, kill, and destroy. So we know that the devil is behind all of this. But we have seen so many things that have come together that have brought about disruption and instability in people's lives. And it has, I believe, it has produced this feeling of depression. It's produced confusion. And because of that, we have young people that are having these conversations.
Right.
And I know that there are kids
Online.
that act out. There are kids that I had a young man. I was thinking about this when you were talking earlier. A young man that had told me one time that he didn't have anywhere to sleep, and so he went to the hospital. And he told him he was suicidal, and he's like, they gave me 72 hours in this place and fed me good, and I got to talk to a bunch of people, and but as a general rule of thumb, I'm telling you, we are under an attack unlike we have never experienced in our society. And so we have so many things that have come together. We had COVID when that happened, so we had young people, many of them that were pushed out of groups that they had normally been in. They would come to school. They would be with their friends. They would be around people that cared about them. Maybe they were in a bad home situation, so they got the opportunity to get out of that home situation for a little while. And then all of a sudden, all of that comes to an end, and we have seen this attack just intensify as young people are now identifying as LGBTQ at a rate unlike we've never seen. And all of these things go hand in hand.
Right. Yep.
And I know the other side uses that as well. They'll try to, because I get told that by some of our fan club out there that tell us, that we're killing kids every time that we deal with or talk about the trans issue or the LGBTQAI plus ///SS plus minus. I get that. I hear what they're saying, right? But the fact that a lot of that is contributing to or is a piece of what is happening in regard to kids committing suicide or being suicidal is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because it's confusion.
Right.
And confusion produces instability, and instability in a young person, especially when they look to adults.
Right.
They are looking for guidance. They are supposed to be guided and taught and trained and given stable ground to stand on.
Right.
And they are being confused, and they are being attacked and pushed in areas that statistically and morally we know is going to produce problems.
Well, and there's kind of a baseline thing here that I'm thinking of, which is whenever you remove the stakes of life and death and the seriousness of death, then automatically it becomes a much more appealing option. So, for instance, we live in the most secular society in America that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Whereas children 50 years ago would have thought, if I commit suicide, one of their first thoughts would have been, I might go to hell, or I might spend eternity, or I might not go to heaven, or whatever it is, depending on their denomination or whatever. That's not even a thought now.
Yeah.
They are so secularized that the majority believe that whenever you die, you just die.
Yeah.
Or possibly there's a place up there that's better than this or whatever, but no reality of truth or any of those things. And I think it shows in a lot of ways we are reaping, the fruits of the labor of the liberals and the, sexual revolution and all of these things. We're no doubt reaping those things. But I really think that a lot of this is a result of when the churches decided to stop making eternity so serious.
Yes.
Whenever they started saying there's no fire in hell, there's no judgment, whatever the big preachers were saying. Whenever these things started happening, then it removed from children and from adults the moment of hesitation to think, maybe I need to get my life straightened out. There's no option for that now.
Yeah.
It is everything around me is terrible. and just being nothing is better than being this. The problem is that that's not the truth.
Right.
The truth is that your soul is going to spend eternity somewhere, and that is one of the greatest successes, I say, in a horrible way, of Satan, is in convincing us that we're just alone. Mm-hmm. That maybe there's aliens, but there's definitely not a God.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of these things that have produced the transgender movement, that have produced the sexual revolution, the sex education in kids. All of those people who promoted and crafted these things had a desire to teach the entire society that there is no God.
Yes.
And this is the natural result of that. Automatically, life becomes something that is not as serious.
Yeah.
And death becomes something that is just, meaningless in reality.
And we've seen that. We've seen statistics and studies that have come out, and they have shown that America has become more and more secular, moved away from faith or the belief that there is a God. And I think that's part of what I wanted to point out. And this is, if you look at this graph right here, this is in regard to female teenagers.
Right.
It says that 57% of them in this study that they did were persistently sad. 30% of them had considered suicide. 24% had planned suicide. 13% had actually attempted suicide. You think about that. That is a heart-wrenching, heartbreaking thought.
Right.
That over 50% of female teenagers are not happy in life.
Yeah.
And I think about, the way that I grew up, and you just, and I know there's bad home situations. I understand all that, but all of this, the breakdown of the family, the attack on stability in regard to the home, the nuclear family, the gender, all of those things are contributing to this.
Right.
And what we are seeing is that people have pushed for these things. They've pushed for these ideas, and the people that have grabbed a hold of them have buyer's remorse.
Right.
They're not happy with them.
Right.
And that's the great thing about being a believer, about being a Christian, about the things that we embrace, that we talk about on here, is that I'm satisfied.
Right.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I want to see there are things that I want to change. There's areas I want to grow in life. There's things that I'd like to see happen in policy, things I'd like to see happen in my family, so on and so forth. But this is sad to think that over 50% of girls are sad.
Right. Yeah, and you have, in some ways, then you have a society that has been promoting that even without the transgender stuff. I think if that never existed, then our teenagers would still be getting sadder and sadder. We believe this biblically, but they would be doing it because they're lacking purpose, lacking drive, the indoctrination of communism and the constant, pressure of telling them, well, the world's going to end because of climate change and there's nothing you can do about it and it's all somebody else's fault. All these things, you've seen these things starting to trend upward, in the early 2010s. In a lot of ways, then the transgender movement, a lot of teenage girls, especially if you look at the statistics, look at it as an answer for their sadness, right? They go and they get, and there's been so many of them that have described that first testosterone shot that they get. And it's like this euphoria. They have so much confidence and they feel so good. These hormones that they've been given give them all kinds of, they feel strong and they feel, empowered and all of this stuff. This euphoria comes over them. They've described it so many times. But then over time, then it's not good enough. They start feeling sad again, doing all these things. So all these things where they go to school and this is supposed to be an answer for them. They go to the doctor and this is supposed to be an answer for them. It's supposed to make them feel better. They trust all of these people and then they wake up one day and realize this didn't help me at all. And on top of that, then everything that they said would work hasn't worked. And so they become disillusioned with everything around them. If this doesn't help me, what will? So in reality, what the education system and what society has done, and a lot of the media has done, is they substituted religion and God.
Yes.
Where people normally, when they were sad, would start searching for something more meaningful in life. They've given them this,
right,
and then pumped them full of drugs, destroyed their body, and then they wake up even worse than they were.
Well, here's the thing about it. Not everybody's bought into that. Mm-hmm. I come across this. I thought it was interesting. Listen to this. I don't know if I sent this to you or not, but I want you to listen to it and maybe make a few comments here on what you think about this.
Mm-hmm. Displays of intolerance and homophobia are unacceptable.
This type of intolerant rhetoric starts in the home.
Parents angry at town hall over intolerance at Marshall Simons Middle School. Kids were asked to wear rainbow clothes in honor of Pride Spirit Day, but some organized a counter-protest wearing red, white, and blue or black. The principal sharing a statement to families that Pride posters were ripped down, stickers ripped up. Some students chanted, "USA are my pronouns," and students showing Pride were intimidated.
It was an unruly disruption, in fact, that was organized ahead of time.
While some parents were upset, others say it was overblown.
Some of the kids threw the stickers on the ground, but I can only speak for my daughter. She didn't want to wear that to school. It's not that she wanted to hurt anybody's feelings.
She says her daughter felt coerced to participate in the Pride event and was offended by some of the messages, like this quote from Tennessee Williams.
Human heart cannot be straight. It is curves and winds, and my daughter just
kind of said, they're pushing on kids.
That's offensive.
And these kids said no.
I am straight.
They said no. They said that's it. We're not putting up with it. Middle school, and I'm sure that there were parents engaged and involved in some of them pushing back.
Right.
But not everybody is buying into this idea, and when you see things like this happen, it gives you some hope to realize that there are some people pushing back. There are some people that are saying that's a line too far. That's not going to work for my family. And even some children, that are willing to engage and say, no, we're not doing that. We're not promoting that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny that they make it out like it's some great travesty that probably some adults organized this, and then they want to pretend that no adults organized the LGBTQ stuff.
Right.
Even though hundreds and hundreds of students show up at a Kentucky rally on a school day, bust in by adults, paid for and organized by adults.
How did the posters get on the wall that got tore down?
Yeah.
The
kids printed
where
out
did the stickers?
themselves?
Who got the stickers that they were handed out that some of the kids threw on the ground?
Yeah, that Tennessee Williams, that was actually a child that wrote that. That wasn't, that was somebody in the school there that wrote that.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's promoting that,
So my point is that there are some people that are pushing back, and we have got to make sure that in every opportunity, every chance that we get to train people, to train children in the way they should go, in the good and the right way, that we take that opportunity as parents, as dads, as mothers, and that we instill in them what is right and what is wrong, and that it's okay to take a stand on what is right.
Right.
And it's becoming less and less popular. Mm-hmm. They do everything that they can to cancel you if you speak the truth. They do not want to hear the truth.
Right.
But to see some parents that tell their kids it's okay to speak the truth, it's okay to take a stand on what is right. And I saw that. I said, I got to play that on the podcast because that is encouraging to see, because we see and hear so much of the other side and of the opposite end of the spectrum in regard to just pushing all of the LGBTQAI plus agenda, and it's being pushed on children.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing too that sometimes people misunderstand is they think that because they suppress what we say or they suppress what can be said on YouTube and Twitter and stuff, that it makes it less true. First of all, that's not the case.
Yeah.
The second thing is that there are a group of people that don't care if BlackRock or any of those companies are forcing all of the major companies around the U.S. to support Pride. There are a group of people that don't care how many of the psychiatrists have been bought and paid for in order to push transgender suggestions in medical care. There's a group of people that don't care if our president hangs the Pride Progress flag on the White House. They're not backing down.
Yes.
I think that, in a lot of ways, people try to pretend as if we don't exist, and pretend as if we're just going to fade away. If suppression will cause us to just fade away. It's not going to cause us to fade away.
No.
They will have to kill us in order for us to go. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing that is going to make us go away.
Yeah.
Now, they can try to create a society or whatever, but just like in this situation in a school that is supposedly decorated with all this stuff, people will continue to rise up because they don't agree with it, and they're not scared of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so with all that focus, though, that is being given across the country on these things, we've seen it in Jefferson County public school system. It's just a very heavy hand of pushing this agenda. You would think that they would be interested in the benefit from it. Like, what is the benefit if we push this stuff? Then definitely we must be educating our kids better. We've got to be, we're making leaps and bounds in educating our kids. Look at this. Look at this. Generation in NAEP scores flashing red after a lost generation of learning for 13-year-olds. Nation's report card shows math skills reset to the level of the 1990s, while struggling readers are scoring lower than they did in 1971.
Right.
So how's it working for us?
Well, they know how to scroll through TikTok, probably.
Well, yes.
But that's it. That's where they're going. I think a lot of that is intentional.
Yes.
That's why our government won't ban it. That's why, President Biden is on TikTok.
Yeah.
Because that's how he gets his message out to people who can't read and who can't do math.
I saw a video of a child that was sleeping the other day, and while the child was sleeping, they were doing this in their sleep, literally, and the parents, it concerned them, and as it should. But, just think about this. Just think about where we are at with mathematics and reading and the impact that this is going to have on our future society.
Right. And there, again, I'll make this point one more time. All of this is supposed to be about equity. It's supposed to be about making minority kids smarter. They've not only failed in doing that, they've also made the white kids dumber, right? So they've brought everybody down. They've not elevated anyone. And so in reality, I think their idea of equity is not really in practice how the results turn out. They don't actually make anybody smarter. They don't actually give black kids and Hispanic kids more opportunities.
Right.
We're talking about in Kentucky statistically, those are the two major groups there that are normally focused on. They call them BIPOC or whatever, people of color. They're not actually focused on bringing them and giving them better opportunities. All they're interested in is eliminating the opportunities for white kids. That's really what they're doing. If we're being honest. You can and you can say, well, that's not the intention. That's not what we're trying to do. Look at the statistics. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. That's what's happening. And it's just like with the transgender issue. It's supposed to make it better. Just look at the statistics. It's not making it better. It's making it worse. Right. And so then they have to blame somebody else for it becoming worse. And that's where controlling the media is very
these facts are so stubborn that the only thing they can do with it is suppress it and try to keep it from getting out. Just in the last week, we could talk about numerous people that were suppressed, were kicked off of YouTube for a period of time because of something they put out. We saw that RFK Jr. and
Michael Knowles,
somebody else. Their video, Jordan Peterson's video, that was taken down over them stating facts that we knew were facts back when they were stating them in the very beginning. They all got taken down and suppressed. Then the truth comes out, and the truth proves that what they were saying all along was right. And then we just take it down again.
Yeah.
Because now
suppress it again.
Yeah, we suppress it now because we can't expose that we lied. Right. So we don't want anybody to know that we lied. We're not disputing the truth. We just have to make sure nobody knows that we lied.
Right. Yeah.
It is unreal how that in every area of our society, when something is going on, the establishment is saying, "Look over here."
Right.
You know, when Hunter Biden is convicted or has been charged with crimes, look at Donald Trump. Look over here.
Oh, Joe Biden said Hunter Biden didn't do anything wrong.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah,
so,
I heard that he said that.
So Biden's DOJ falsely charged his own son.
Yes.
And then gave him a sweetheart deal for falsely charging him, I guess, because he pled guilty, and then didn't charge him for all the other stuff that was on his computer.
And he's proud. He's really proud of it.
Oh, he's super proud of him.
He's super proud of him. God save the Queen, man.
Yeah.
It's always diversion. It's always a diversion
Dog
tactic.
face line, pony soldier.
I'll use this example because you will get it, and some of you, those of you out there that listen and that know your Bible, you remember the situation where Saul was told to go destroy all of the Amalekites, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't. So he kept the king alive.
Right.
And he kept some of the sheep and some of the oxen, right? And I can't remember what else, but I know those things specifically.
Some of the women and children.
And so Samuel, who was the prophet, was told by God, this is what happened. So Samuel finds out where Saul is at, and he shows up. And the first thing that Saul says is, "Blessed be thou the Lord." We've done everything that we were told to do. It's always diversion. Right. It's always diversion. And then all of a sudden, the sheep baa and the cows begin to low, as they always do. The truth comes out.
Yeah.
And you're confronted. And then what our society does is that they try to convince you, that wasn't a sheep.
No, that was a dog. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you didn't hear what you think you
I've
just
had
heard.
That sheep all along.
It's constant diversion. We do not understand how deep the corruption goes. Right. But this is what we have seen, is that conspiracy that people have talked about, things they have called conspiracy theory, what we have found out is usually they were not even half of what was actually going on.
Right.
And so there's this constant diversion. Look over here. Look at this. We've seen it on the racial front. We've seen it on the LGBTQ front. We have seen it on the power front as far as establishment goes, and political power. Constantly. Look over here. Look at this, so that you don't see. Suppress the truth. Divert people from seeing and knowing the truth. And it produces what we are dealing with now. It produces people that just follow along, do what they're told. Doesn't matter if it's not working. Doesn't matter if it falls off a cliff. It doesn't matter. And there will come a day that we will see a backlash unlike we have never seen, as we heard these young children down this path of, yes, you can be something you're not. Yes, you can change your body. Yes, it's going to help you mentally. Yes, it's going to make you feel better. Push them down this direction. And all the while, they're telling us that are speaking out against it, look over here. What about this? Trying to divert our attention, suppress the truth. There's coming a day that the truth is as stubborn as it is.
Right.
It's not going away.
Right.
It's going to come out. Yep. These kids are going to look back and they're going to ask the adults that were in their life, why did you lie to us? Why did you not guide us? Why did you not take us down the right path? And I'm telling you, when that day comes, I don't know how bad it will get, but you think about a young person waking up one day with parts of their body gone and regretting that they did that.
Right.
Realizing that it was the wrong move and trying to be okay with all of the adults
Right.
that pushed them down that path.
Right. Yeah. It's
It's
gonna be a
coming.
mess. Yeah.
It's coming.
There's several articles you can read. There's Euro News, Sweden, Finland, a lot of these countries in Europe that what we're going through now, then they introduced full bore in 2015, 2016. They've already started just 5-6 years later. They've had all these things completely legalized, and now they've started backtracking except in extreme cases because they saw the diagnoses of gender dysphoria skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
That's always what happens in these situations. It never solves the issue. It doesn't ever bring down the cases of gender dysphoria. It always accelerates them because the medical community is incentivized to fit in with a trend or to fit in with a group. And the social structure is incentivized to allow this to happen. Oh yeah, to lie about what will be the outcome. And always, like you're saying, the truth catches up with them.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have countries that have been extremely liberal for decades and decades that are restricting the surgeries, restricting the puberty blockers, restricting the hormone therapies. They're restricting them far more than almost any state in the United States except for a few rare cases.
Right.
But we're the ones that are on that are against science. It's like the doctor that won't debate RFK Jr. like Hote Hotez or whatever his name is, like Marine Hotez. I don't know what he is.
I just like to know how he keeps those
dude.
glasses on. That's pretty amazing there. It looks like they just sit there somehow. But.
Yeah, I don't know. A strange guy there. But he basically said, there's they made compilation videos of him saying, children need to take these 2 vaccine doses and it'll be long lasting. And then just a month later, he's like, well, it's not working as well as we want to. It looks like they need to do a 3rd dose. And then, and then it'll cut to 5th and 6th boosters and all of these things. The guy is an absolute quack compared to the people who were talking about vaccines in the negative. Mm-hmm. If you compare what they said and what he has said all along, he's changing the goalpost, constantly having to lie to get more people to vaccinate, and those people have been right all along.
Been in the same spot he's always been, and everything that they have dealt with has been proven right. But the thing is, with people like him, and other so-called medical professionals, what I don't understand, or I think I do understand, but it is the push in every area. The push is toward youth. Right. It's toward children. Right. And so even, when they were pushing the vaccine, there was proof out there. There was statistics that was showing how little risk there was with youth and with children, but they had this push, this drive to get them vaccinated, get them under these ideologies, allow them to be able to do whatever they want to do with their own body. Right. So this bill has been moving forward in the state of California. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about this, but there's been more articles that have been written, people discussing what's going on. This California bill that would charge parents who don't affirm transgenderism with child abuse. Mm-hmm. And they're already seeing in these custody battles how these parents are, it's a strike against them in custody battle if they do not affirm their kid in these types of ideologies. Right. We're seeing that. I don't know if you saw what happened over in Michigan, I believe it was last week. Let me see if I can pull it up. There is a proposed law there that has been proposed by the, I think the Attorney General there has been a part of that legislation. Right. Maybe we can pull it up here in just a minute if you want to see if you can pull it up. But anyway, she is married to a woman, okay? Mm-hmm. So she is a lesbian. And they proposed a law that they are trying to get passed that would call someone speaking out against that lifestyle hate speech if that person actually received documented harm. Then they could be held legally liable for speaking out and speaking the truth of what they believe about the LGBTQAI plus agenda.
Right.
So on one end, we're trying to say you can't speak the truth about it. If you speak the truth about it, you can be held criminally liable. And as a parent, if you don't affirm it, you can be held criminally liable. On every hand.
Yeah.
It's an attack. And they are trying their best to push this into the court system. That way, they put fear in the hearts of people to just keep your mouth shut. Yeah. Don't say anything about it, and everything will work out fine for you.
Again, ACLU of Kentucky, can we just do away with your false statement that this is about parental rights? It's not about parental rights unless they agree with you. That's the only time that you think a parent has a right, is if they agree with you. If a parent disagrees with the liberal side on how to discipline and raise their children, then it's child abuse.
Yeah.
If a parent disagrees with them about transitioning their child, then it's child abuse, and they're going to charge you criminally. If a parent disagrees about where to send their child to school with the establishment or with the government, then you're a bigot. And you're a racist, and you don't want your kids going to school with people of different color.
Yes.
If parents disagree with the establishment about how their children should be educated in the sex education realm, then you're a bigot and you're a homophobe and all of these things. Stop with the parental rights championing that the ACLU of Kentucky is trying to do. They don't care about parental rights.
Don't.
All they care about is forcing people to agree with them, and that is it.
Yes.
The children that they have promoted in their lawsuit. They have parents that agree, and all of that is great and fine. But they chose them. They didn't choose a set of parents where one parent doesn't want their child to transition and the other one does. And the reason that they did that is because they're trying to force that mindset on everybody.
Yes.
If they wanted to be fair and say, look, we need to figure out some kind of way that we can deal with this when one parent's disagreeing and one's not, then they might have included that in the lawsuit. But they didn't. They have one mindset. They have one mindset for us. One mindset that they are offering us. And if we don't take it, then they're going to force it. And that's their only desire.
This bill has already made it through.
Was it from October of last year?
No. This is this year. And I'm talking about the one in Michigan. It's already made it through the House. Mm-hmm. And as of right now, it's getting ready to go into the Senate. This was June 21st article that I'm reading right here. Okay. And so it's getting ready to go to the Senate, and they will be hearing the bill there. But if you look at what they're saying here, is basically it redefines intimidation.
Yeah.
So if it's repeated or continued harassment of another individual that would cause them to feel terrorized, frightened, or threatened. And they are moving this to include when you speak out against LGBTQAI plus
again, the
people is basically what they're saying.
Their entire mindset is built on the fact, whenever it says terrorized, frightened, or threatened their entire mindset is built on the fact of like self-reporting. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how do you know that they feel terrorized or threatened? Well, because they said so.
Yeah.
Well, then the people over here say that they feel that it is cruel. There's a man here in Michigan, a state representative that filed a bill last October. He filed a bill to make it first-degree child abuse to provide gender-affirming care. Would classify providing minors with gender-affirming care as first-degree child abuse.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how he feels, if he feels threatened or terrorized, then that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
They're not going to be persecuted. Another point, again, that it doesn't, Michigan is one of the most liberal states in the United States right now as far as representation goes. The Democrats control everything. There's still some guy here one guy.
But they tried to take our governor out.
Yeah.
Remember? They were,
That FBI. Where it was like they had one, mentally challenged guy and then 16 FBI agents.
Yes.
But there's one guy that's not going to back down.
Yeah.
That is going to tell the truth and will not back down unless they literally force us physically to be silent.
Yeah.
That's how it is always going to be. We're always going to stand up. Another point that I wanted to make here, a lot of times we highlight these things and make people aware of these things or try to make people aware of these things. And it's intended to, stir people to action, to get involved in their local school boards and all of this stuff, not to force their local school to, use buses to bus their children to a pro 150, Senate Bill 150 protest, none of those things. Just to get involved with their children and in their local communities. That's the intention.
Right.
A lot of times it can feel like, well, this isn't making a difference, or I don't want to think about this. It's too much to think about right now. It's everywhere. I think that I have settled on what my suggestion is for the best thing that you can do to fight back against this.
Yeah.
And it's to take your family and your children to a church that tells the truth.
Yes.
To a church that does not try to wiggle around the social issues of the day, but simply tells the truth of what the Bible says.
Yeah.
These people, these children that are raised in this environment, will always be the ones that stand against this evil. There is no social program that we can introduce that is going to overcome this evil if we don't know anything about God. If we are going to, and this is a larger point that we could go back to, it didn't just start with this issue.
Correct.
Right? It didn't start with this issue. The first issue that was introduced, that was based on theory and not fact. Based on theory, and then the entire, it's in the heading of scientific consensus, right? Whenever scientific consensus first revolved around a thing that was theory and not fact, and then presented that theory as fact, and then continued to do that, was evolution.
Right.
That was the first thing. If you go back to all the bases of evidences or whatever, it's all theory. And they have presented it as fact for years. Whenever we accepted that we were not created by God and that we bear no responsibility to God, this is the outcome of our
exactly
society.
right.
If you want to fight back, if you really want to strike a blow that cannot be undone, take your children and your family, get up on Sunday morning, take them to a church that tells the truth. You can wake up to do anything else in the world. Take them to that, or just let them go and let them turn into pride marchers. Yeah.
I had a young man tell me the other day that has just been recently married, and he made the statement. He said, I really am concerned, and we've thought about maybe not having children just because of how bad the world is. And I said, absolutely not. You have to be a part of making a difference. You have to do what you can. We need just what you said. Fathers that will engage, that will get their families in church, that will teach the truth to their children, get them an environment to where that is fostered. And we need them to prepare young people to lead our state, to lead our country, to lead our cities, to lead our counties, to lead every area of our society in what is right.
Yep.
Or you end up with what we're dealing with now.
Right.
We passed Senate Bill 150. We addressed issues in the legislature.
Yep.
And then we get it out into the public, and you get places like Fayette County Public Schools who says that they're not going to do what we said. They're not going to follow the law. They're going to, there was the question that came up about the and or the or in regard to.
Okay, that's not a question. That's just something literally made up out of thin air.
They literally made it up to try to keep from having to comply. That's how hard they worked.
Right.
With our tax dollars to bring in attorneys.
Right.
I guess that they have just sitting there on staff to read laws and be able to help them figure out how to negate or think that they might win in court.
It doesn't negate anything. The lawyers were literally just paid to make up something.
To make it up.
That's it.
and say, well, do this and we'll represent you in court.
Right. Which I understand, because none of them put any emphasis on understanding English or reading or anything.
Right.
Actually,
it's only understanding this type of stuff.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's supported, and it shows by the scores.
Yeah.
The facts bear it out that they have not been focused on education.
So here's another question.
On-
Lexington Herald Leader.
Foundational education.
Yes, in that third paragraph there, the word "or" links proposed bans on any instruction. Why is there anything in that paragraph that is not the actual text of the bill? That paragraph should be text of the bill, and that's it. They have to take out phrases and then put their own little phrases in there in order to make it say what they want it to say.
Here. Let me take it back to the top.
All right.
There you go. There's the reason why. Look at the very top.
Yeah.
Because that's who they are.
Right.
It's the Herald Leader out of Lexington, who from the very beginning, from the very get-go.
And they think they're so smart.
I went up there. I went up for training as a brand new legislator.
Right.
Okay. I'm up there with several freshmen. We go in for training, and COVID is going on. And we go into the Capitol or into the annex, and we're sitting there and we're being trained on processes and procedures, staff, how things work, how to get things done, all of those types of things. I'm sitting there. I've got something to drink. I've got a snack there. And I'm sitting there and sipping on my drink and eating my snack. And little did I know that one of the Democrats is up there snapping pictures of me sitting out there without a mask on.
Right.
Well, guess who the first news group was to blast this out everywhere and to blast us, the few of us that didn't have a mask on, because we understood what the sciences bore out. Two, I'm sitting there drinking a drink, and they didn't care about what was going on. They didn't care about the fact that I had a snack laying there that I was eating. None of that mattered. All that mattered was the optics of what they wanted to put out so they could attack somebody that they knew was conservative. Yeah. And that was it. And that's what this is. They're just continuing down the path of attacking anything that has any morality about it at all.
This is the same group right around the University of Kentucky that can see Riley Gaines standing next to Will Thomas, who wants to be called Leah Thomas, and say that both of them are women. Like, these are the brilliant people at the Lexington Herald Leader, right? They are so smart that the super educated people, socialist people over in Europe are backing up and saying everything that they say is true. The people in Europe are saying it's dangerous.
Yes.
They're saying we should use caution. They're so brilliant that they're smarter than all those people over there. They're smarter than the most educated per capita population in the world. That's how brilliant these morons are.
This is where we are.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Now we have people in society that are in positions of authority that are saying, we're not going to comply. We're not going to do it. We're just going to do what we want to do. And think about it. Think about it. All of this revolves around this issue that I get it. People are sick. We're sick of talking about it. This is Pride Month. Every single day it has been something else that has been thrown at us. There have been rallies. There have been festivals, festivities all across the country. It's nonstop. There have been things that were absolutely wicked, where kids have been exposed to men in garb and very little clothing on.
Explain to me how a male adult dancing in front of a child, naked, basically. Explain to me how that's not sexualizing them.
Well, that's the point is that we now have people in positions of authority in society that are all on board with this. And that is what we're seeing.
Like Matt Jones.
This is why that we need a real commissioner of education. This is why that we need Daniel Cameron to be the governor of Kentucky, the next governor of Kentucky, because we have got to clean house. We have got to go into these systems and these structures. One, we got to quit focusing on system and structures and start focusing on students. So we need school choice. But we've got to get some people that will actually go lead in the good and the right way. So this is what we're dealing with on every hand. And all that you were just talking about, the family unit, right. What I was talking about children, the Bible says as arrows right. in the hands of a mighty man, right. so are children of the youth. Right. That's where our focus has got to be. That's where it has to be. They're focusing on the youth for a different reason.
That's right.
And what you just said about the sexualization, that has been happening. We're gonna do a show on this before long, sometime in the month of July. I've talked with Senator Lindsey Titchener, and we're going to talk about Alfred Kinsey and how that this whole sexual revolution began and what the thought process was, and the guy was a straight up pedophile,
right?
And we as in society uses his studies and his material
right.
that was such a fraud, such a fake in how that he did it. And he made it what he wanted it to, the outcome to be, what he wanted it to be. And society hails people like that.
Right.
And look at what happened in Indiana. I think they put up a statue or something of this guy at a university over there.
He went to Indiana University, so that's why
that's where we're at,
right,
as society, and we have got to take a stand.
Yeah,
we've got to see, and these laws, people have to understand. Your vote counts. Every vote matters. Every time that you engage in the process, you have to be thinking ahead. Who would have thought that there would have been a law coming to California 50 years ago that said that a parent, if they wouldn't affirm their child in gender transitioning, that they could be held liable for child abuse?
Yeah.
Who would have thought about that? Who was thinking ahead of that? The other side
Alfred Kinsey, yeah.
Alfred Kinsey. Yeah. People like that.
Yeah, this was always their outcome.
Yeah.
They called it liberation. But what they wanted to do is remove any type of structure from society, remove any type of structure from our family. They wanted to destroy the nuclear family. I mean, you go and look at BLM, you look at all of these social justice organizations and their hatred of the nuclear family. So you know what that really means? If you want to stand up against them, have a nuclear family.
Yeah.
If you want a surefire now,
exactly
there's a lot of things that we can do. We can vote, and those things are good. Politicians may betray us. They may change their mind. They may do whatever. If you want a guaranteed way to stand up against all of this junk, raise your family in a church that tells the truth. Now, you might say, well, there's other ways of doing it. We don't want to promote a certain religion. I'm talking about a surefire way. Mm-hmm. That Bible, the King James Bible, not New King James, the King James Bible is always going to oppose that junk.
Yes.
Always going to oppose it.
Yeah.
If you want a way to stand up against that, raise your family according to it.
That's right.
If you want a society that's always going to stand against that, raise your family according to it. This is my problem with, kind of the libertarian mindset now, is they just want to live and let live, right? Whenever you adopt that mindset, then the Albert Kinseys take over. There's no other option because they're intending to take over. And you're intending to just sit back and let everybody do what they want to. Well, what they want to do is take over. What they want to do is sexualize your children. What they want to do is coerce more of them into the LGBTQI. Right. There's another point that somebody made about, well, nobody chooses to be gay and nobody chooses to be a lesbian because why would somebody sign up for that victimization all of the time? we're living in the world that craves victimization.
That's exactly right.
If that is still your argument, look at the world around you. That is the weakest argument that I've ever heard in my life. If you don't want to accept that it is a choice and that you chose to follow desires that you have that are different from other people, if you don't want to accept that is a choice, you live in your fantasy world, but this is the result of it.
That was the whole mindset of Marxism, was to create victims.
Yeah.
And if you create victims, and we did that through racism, well, now we're seeing something has happened to where different right. groups of ethnicity are looking around saying, man, this didn't work out very good for us. We might ought to look at voting for somebody different. That they constantly have to be pushing victimization of people. Now, I agree with you. Get your family, get a Bible, get them in church, teach them what is right, and be different. And raise them to lead. The other thing that we have to do is that we have to vote for people and try. We need people to rise up that are willing to put themselves out there, that have these moral values and principles, and to go run for office. And we've got to have people to support them. It's either that or it's this. This is the other alternative. This is
Tweedledee and
every time I see something from him and think about what happened there, like how many people in Pennsylvania were duped, and this is happening all across the country. This is just an extreme example, but you can vote for somebody that'll stand on principles, somebody that is strong, somebody that doesn't back down. They went all out. They spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to hide from the public what was going on with this guy, and to make sure with
Joe
John
Biden?
Fetterman.
Oh, sorry.
And to get him elected.
Like they did that with both of them.
Exactly right. So this was him over the weekend. He was speaking with the president. They went to Pennsylvania. The president was accepting an endorsement by the labor union there in Pennsylvania. And so he took John Fetterman with him in his hoodie and his shorts and his tennis shoes with the president of the United States on stage. We've lost decorum. We've lost morality. We've lost what we used to value, that promoted an environment of respect and all of that.
And these two have lost their minds.
And
literally.
they've lost their mind.
Literally.
Let's listen in here and let him talk a little bit about his good buddy Joe Biden here.
The president, again, next to a collapsed bridge here. And he is here to commit to work with the governor and the delegation to make sure that we get this fixed quick, fast as well, too. This is a president that is committed to infrastructure. Yeah, and then on top of that, the dual kind of a law of the inflation bill that is going to make sure that there's going to be bridges all across this all across America getting.
I mean, it's pretty bad when even Joe Biden is looking at him like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this guy's messing up this much.
When are we going to get done here? Or is he finished speaking yet? He had a friend of his, a congressman from Pennsylvania was there as well, and he got to introduce him as well.
It's a pleasure to be here and to introduce my friend, Congressman Boyle Bile.
Who?
Boyle Bile. Congressman Boyle Bile.
Well, thank you. I'm Congressman Brendan Boyle.
Oh, Congressman Brendan Boyle. Boyle Bile. My point is this, and I understand. I know people are going to say, "Oh, you're making fun." This is the point that is that when that's what we elect, what we're dealing with in society, is never going to be addressed.
It's not funny because, Joe Biden is suffering from dementia, or because Senator Fetterman is suffering from, effects of a stroke. That's not what's funny. What's funny is that that's the president and that's a senator.
That's exactly right.
That's what's funny, is that people voted for them.
How in the world did that happen? And then you think about the mindset of people that supported that so that it could happen. And you think about the behind the scenes powers, the money and the push and the drive to make sure that it was suppressed, how bad that he was. You think about his wife that was engaged in that process to get him into that position. You understand there's a system that is against us.
Right. It's almost like they wanted them to be elected so that the people behind the scenes could run the show.
Yes.
That's almost what it's like. So that they could stand somebody up there that obviously is not capable of speaking or processing information at a level that would be worthy of the office of president or of the office of senator. Someone who's not capable of doing that, so that they can just do whatever they want to behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And it's just open right there in front of our faces. It's absolutely crazy.
And the fact that people go along with it, the fact that people support it, and
one other point to be made there. The guy that ran against Fetterman, Mehmet Oz, was not a good candidate.
No.
Not at all.
That's a fact.
And again, one of my issues with Trump is that he supported that guy, Mehmet Oz. And Mehmet Oz was just a Democrat just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Had no conservative principles or values, and conservatives did not show up to vote in Pennsylvania. The guy that they ran for governor, same thing. He was not a true conservative. Trump supported him to get him through the primary, said, look, he's a winner. And then that guy did not campaign for the rest of the year. It's almost like he was a plant.
Exactly.
And the Democrats do that. They send in the plants, whatever.
It happens.
And their strategy is if they can get Trump to support somebody in the primary that is actually their person, then they've won. All they got to do is sit back and take a back seat.
That's my point, is that there is a system behind this that we are at war with. There are two things going on. There's an unseen system that is driving this agenda, and that is a force. And then we understand that there is an unseen spiritual system that is behind this and that is driving this. And we have to engage in both in order to take a stand. We have to be willing to spiritually engage through prayer, through just living out the truth, doing what's right. And we also have to engage in the process and in people that are willing to stand up against this system. And it's not fun. It's not easy.
Social
the fan mail goes down.
And social media is suppressing everything that
That's
you do.
That's sarcasm, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Social media is suppressing everything that you do and letting, transgender pedophiles on TikTok just totally, the creepiest people you can imagine talk to 13-year-olds about sexual things and no suppression or restrictions at all. They can show as much of their body as they want to, with very little exception. They can do whatever that they want to do in front of those children, and there's no restriction, But you try to start a podcast, they're going to take your YouTube video down if a couple people don't like it. They're going to suppress you. They're going to shadow ban. They're going to do whatever they want to, and they're going to let all of the hate comments just flow.
Right.
Those people that say they want you to die, that they want you to, whatever. Just let them go. They
Look
don't
at
care.
this. This was Louisville this past weekend.
Waterfront Park. Look in there.
Yeah, let's see if we can play a little bit.
I
want you to listen. Listen to the focus of what they talk about.
This was at the main.
And then understand why that we keep digging in on this issue.
This hate, we have to have them.
The parade traveled through downtown, ending at the Big Four lawn, where the party is continuing through the night. And that's where our crew spent most of their day today, talking to thousands in attendance. Connor Steffen and photojournalist Elijah McKenzie takes us there.
Look at
From
that.
the sections earmarked for family and kids to the platform
kids in the
stages
family
local
area.
drag queens were strutting down. Saturday, the Big Four lawn was beaming with pride.
That we are going to stick together. We can endure anything that comes our way.
We are here to support them and to back them up.
Kentucky
support the
Pride Festival
kids and
leaders
back 'em
estimate
up.
2023
What would drag
celebration
queens
saw
do without
crowds reach
makeup?
20 to 30,000. It also featured more than 160 vendors.
What was that?
I said, what would drag queens do without makeup?
I don't even know what they would be.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Most of the time, what I see, it looks like it's more like a clown.
Right.
But
and sponsors, including Louisville Youth Group. They were at Pride for one reason and one reason only.
Because the queer youth and youth in general is just our future. And the
it's our
youth
future.
Is,
the queer.
Hang
on, just a second.
Is just so
just a second. Now, I'll think about that.
Mm-hmm.
The queer youth are our future.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what she just said.
Right.
You tell me that they are not pushing this stuff and driving our youth down this path.
Right.
This lady just literally said, here's the future. This is the future of our society.
Right.
It's queer youth. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? It doesn't even produce offspring.
Right.
It doesn't.
No.
It can't. But they have to make it more morally equivalent,
right.
And then they have to do it at the youth level.
Well, that's why we say our children are our future.
Yes.
That's what we say because, we have
Joe
children.
Biden said they're their children.
Yeah.
You've heard me say it many times about our children, but it's true. They're all our children. They're not somebody else's children. They're like yours when they're in the classroom.
It's theirs. He's going to sniff their hair.
Do I consider it inappropriate to smell someone's hair, to get so close that I smell their hair? Yes.
And lay claims on them.
Again, except for Hunter Biden's child.
I'm very proud of my son.
I am. This is why. This is why. Let's keep watching it.
Is just our future, and the youth is the queer youth is just so marginalized, and sometimes their voices are not heard, especially by the adults. And
okay, hang on just a second. Just a second. So the queer youth's voices, they're marginalized, and they're many times are not heard, especially by adults. Well, guess what? As a parent, it is much more important that my children hear me than that I hear them.
Right.
Not that I'm not to listen.
Right.
Not that I'm not to be empathetic, that I'm not to try to understand.
Right.
But I'm the parent.
Right.
I'm the guide. I'm the one that is to give direction. But this is totally reversed.
Yeah.
This
well,
is
and
you're
you know
not
what I
hearing
say.
The kids.
You know what I say as a parent in that situation is don't hang around these pedophiles.
That's exactly right.
That's why they don't want us to have. That's why they don't want us to have a voice.
That's exactly right.
We are the only ones who can warn the kids. We're the only ones who can warn the children. Obviously, their parents haven't warned them. We're the only ones that can warn them. That's why they have to shut us down.
That's right.
Because if we simply speak the truth, and those children are allowed to process the truth in a balanced environment, then it takes away not the child's future. It doesn't take away the child's future. It takes away their future.
Yes.
It takes away the groomer's future.
Right.
That's what it takes away.
Well, sometimes their voices are not heard.
Especially by the adults. And
But their voices have gotten louder.
Okay, hang on. I know we need to finish this up. But any time that I ever screamed something that I wanted and said now to my dad or my mom,
Did not.
I wouldn't even go into how well it did not go, but let's just say that what I was screaming about definitely got put on the bottom of the list.
Mm-hmm.
So where did we come to the place that kids demand of adults?
Yeah. I mean, it's a religious service.
That's exactly what it is.
They are worshiping their trans gods. That's exactly what they're doing. And this is the way that they're taught to worship. You go look at Chris Hartman speaking on Senate Bill 150 and look at how he acted and what he said. That's exactly what that is.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing.
They're being taught how to do this.
Kentucky this past year, as the state legislature mulled over and eventually passed into law anti-trans measures in SB 150. While the law's future is still somewhat uncertain, LYG said it's reason enough to show up and support queer youth, meeting them where they're at.
It is like...
Why are we always separating out and segregating in our society? Yeah. Why are we always doing that? Why? It just said again, that we separated out queer youth. Mm-hmm. What about youth? What about just youth?
Right.
Why do we always have to do this in our society, that everybody has to become a group and we have to put this group here and this group here and this group here? Constantly happening. There's a reason why. It's about control. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why.
Yeah.
Breaking, but also like very fulfilling, and we are always going to stand behind them. So any bill,
I'm going to back that up just a little bit.
We are always going to stand behind.
I want you to.
It is like heartbreaking, but also like very fulfilling.
It's very fulfilling.
And we are always going to stand behind them. So any bill or legislation that may pass, we're always going to have their backs, no matter what.
That sentiment was expressed by all, for all, at Pride.
And as we're here, for me, I'm here to show our young ones that we're not going to go anywhere. We're here for everybody.
Now we
show the young ones.
Politicians who are trying to push us back in the closet, and I'm like, I refuse to go.
A day for celebration and a day for visibility. In Louisville, Connor Steffen, the WHAS 1119, on your side.
But they're not after the kids.
Mm-hmm. Why were those two old dudes like hanging out in the family area? I don't know.
Exactly right.
They don't make a family area to isolate them. They make it's like a feeding ground.
Hey, this is a sexual issue.
Yeah.
Why in the world are these adults pushing and driving and exposing and promoting sexual things to kids? That's the question.
Right.
I know the answer to the question.
Mm-hmm.
They hate it when we say it.
Right.
But I'm telling you, we've got to say it louder.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to push harder. We have got to take a stand more firm. We have got to be more vocal. We've got to get churches, moms, dads. We've got to get pastors. We have to get legislators. We have to get community leaders. Mm-hmm. We've got to get them to get a backbone and stand against the stuff. They are after our kids.
Yep, exactly right.
They're after them.
There were no children or no teenagers talking there. It was just that one woman. Mm-hmm. The only way that you see the kids is angry screaming. One, because they're not able to articulate what they believe. They've been told everything to say in that situation. I've been reading a lot about Trotsky and Lenin and Stalin and all that, the Bolshevik Revolution and all this in Russia, tied in with a little bit of Chinese stuff with Mao. But that is exactly how they presented the youth then. The youth were used as a pawn, as a tool, as a presentation at the show. They were told everything to say, and they were told to allow their anger and their violence to just be uncontrolled.
Yeah.
So all of these people were behind the scenes, making the messaging, doing all this stuff, and then they unleash angry youth onto the establishment, onto the institutions, into the streets to destroy things, all of this stuff. The youth are being used. They don't just want your children to prey on them, even though they do. They don't just want your children to introduce them to their group, even though they do. They intend to use your children in a war against everything that you stand for.
Yeah.
They intend to use every one of your children and unleash them against everything that they hate so that they can take power.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it happened in Russia. That's exactly how it happened in China, Cuba, Venezuela. Doesn't matter what it is. Every one of those Marxist thinkers have always loved the youth because they can manipulate it to do what they want to. But first, they have to separate the youth from the parents.
Yes.
They have to separate the youth from any kind of structure or religious authority, and then they can manipulate them as they want.
Yeah. Well, I just had, just this past week, some information that came over to me from a group that had done an open records request with Elizabethtown Independent School System.
Right.
Same trash. Same junk in their libraries. Just, Ellen Hopkins, who's one of the authors of some of these books, a book summary about a book called Triangles. 3 women with different relationship statuses discover more about themselves while having sexual relationships with mutual acquaintances. This is the book, one of the books. There's several more that they have in their library for kids. And I'm telling you, there's a reason why they want to put them in their hands. There's a reason why that they want them to be exposed to this stuff. And I'm going to do my dead level best, by God's grace, to keep exposing them. Thank you for watching the Josh Calloway podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to get as much information out as we can about what is going on in our state, in our communities, and across the country. If you will share, like, and subscribe to this podcast, you could be notified as soon as a new one comes out. Tell your friends and your family about it, because we want people to be informed and engaged in protecting and promoting the truth. Thank you, and God bless.